Hello ladies and gents, Hagbard Celine here on another beautiful afternoon, and to round off the year, today we will be reading an article by the Daily Kos. But before we do that, I would just like to make note. No matter what extreme you appear to go to, left or right, in modern journalism, what it has come down to is essentially cliques from high school that have camped up in these opposing ideals and now write snarky, childish, high school level pieces that read more like a live journal entry from the early 2000s than a professionally manufactured piece. This is the prime example of that. This is perhaps the supreme example of what I'm talking about. Although BuzzFeed has tried in the past to refine snarkiness to this level of immature clapbackery. And as frustrating as it may be as someone who considers himself left-leaning to watch this occur, with the end of this election, it does appear that they're turning into the new insane fringe right, the new birther movements, the new not my president, the new divisive party. And before you would see that from the likes of Alex Jones and, well, you know, the InfoWars crowd. But now you're starting to see it from people that, frankly, I considered mainstream. And in the future, I think that we will see parodies of extreme left uncles instead of the extreme right conspiracy theory uncles being written into stories in the future. Because that'll be the new stereotype. Because that's what's occurring right now. Now, I'm going to do this article the only justice it deserves and read it in a teenage girl's voice. And you tell me that this couldn't have been found on LiveJournal several years ago. Message to my Trump-supporting Facebook friends. Okay, Facebook friends, time to block my newsfeed. Honestly, who calls their own Facebook a newsfeed? That's just depressing. Or unfriend me. If you have ever posted anything even remotely racist or misogynistic or promoted gun violence, but no one promotes gun violence, you nutjob, or made fun of political correctness, or promulgated lies about President Obama or former Secretary of State Clinton, then I blocked your newsfeed long ago. Good job, reinforce the walls of that echo chamber at any cost. I'm one of those elite liberals that you got back at when you voted for Donald Trump. Don't worry, she hammers on this concept of being an elite liberal, and she seems to be proud to be a stereotype. Yes, I think that a person who is running for president should be able to clearly explain his or her policies, and should actually have some policies, and know how the government works, and care how the government works. Do you see how you're writing like a teenager? This is not proper English. This is not how the language is used. If you're writing professionally, you're not supposed to write like this. And have a working knowledge of world geography and foreign policy. I think that the person who runs the most powerful country on the planet should take that job very fucking seriously. Do you? Well, congratulations. That's a thought that nobody else has ever had. You're groundbreaking here. I think that supporting our military should mean that we do not send our brave young men and women to needless and endless wars. Do you realize that we've been in Afghanistan for 16 years now, and for what? First and foremost, if you ever hear someone begin something with, do you realize, or you do realize, duck. They're going to be one of the most obnoxious human beings on the planet. It's pretty much assured. And do you realize, dear, that for 8 of those 16 years, it has been under your beloved Barack Obama, and he has done absolutely nothing to solve the problem. It's almost like the president doesn't have that kind of power. It's almost like there are larger geopolitical issues at play that you're completely ignoring. But don't worry, we'll get to fuck Bush later, don't worry. I think that our country has an imperialistic foreign policy that oftentimes we reap what we sow. Okay, so you're completely fine with the terrorism is what you're saying here. Subtly and quietly, you're saying you kind of get what you get. I think that the architects of the Iraq War, Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Rice, committed war crimes and have the blood of all of our slain and maimed soldiers and innocent civilians on their hands. Of course, as per the usual, we deal with the war crimes thing because, you know, all the things that you're complaining in here haven't continued and increased under Barack Obama, right? I think that Guantanamo Bay is a bloody stain on our national character. And I think that the president that you laud as your leader failed to close it as he promised during his campaign. but I'm sure you'll be more than happy to point out every time the new incumbent president doesn't meet his requirements, right? That people kill people, guns don't kill people line is the most back-ass word bullshit that I've ever heard. Yeah, because every time I've ever seen a gun, it's just bouncing around the room trying to kill people. People with guns kill people. People with knives kill people. And people with machetes kill people. And people with sticks kill people. Where do you stop? And not everyone should have a gun. We already live in a country where not everyone can have a gun. And certainly not an arsenal. And you get to define what that is. And no, I'm not naive enough to think that restrictions on gun access will prevent all violent gun deaths, but for fuck's sake, can we start somewhere? Sure, let's start with the guns that kill most people. Pistols. Just handguns. Your standard, typical pistol. But I'm sure you'd start with assault weapons for no apparent reason, simply because you've been scared into it by the media. I think that words matter. Perhaps you were happier in a world where kids were called retards and some boys were called faggots, but I'd rather live in a civilized and polite world. I always love that these people have now lived long enough to go from naked and dancing in Woodstock to pearl clutching over word usage. That's what the left has done over the last 40 years. We've gone from saying we should be able to do and say whatever we want despite who it offends to pearl clutching over the word faggot. Fantastic, well done. Maybe you will blast Merry Christmas as loud as you can, but I will keep singing Happy Holidays because it's more inclusive. Whoa, you put way too much behind that. Fucking insane people. As in not purposefully leaving anyone out, as in being kind, as in just fucking acknowledging that your reality is not everyone's reality, and that by acknowledging someone else's reality that yours is not in jeopardy. Okay, calm down. What are you all afraid of anyway? Is a mass of Muslim immigrants going to take your Christmas away? If there are enough, the answer to that is yes. That has happened in other countries. Afghanistan, as you mentioned earlier, is actually a good example of that. They were Buddhist once, you know. I'm more afraid of the mass of Christians that are trying to teach kids in Texas that creationism is real. Yeah, I'm concerned with that too. Only they're failing, you see, whereas the Muslim immigration isn't. That is occurring. I think that those who put Blue Lives Matter signs on your lawn ought to be ashamed of yourselves for thinking for 1 minute that there is no racism in this country, and that young black men being gunned down in the street by police is not a problem. Oh, this entire thing is just an emotional attack on, I guess, her Facebook followers. I'm really not sure what she's trying to do aside from the good old-fashioned virtue signal here. And for those of you who were worried that life as we knew it was coming to an end when Bernie Sanders suggested universal healthcare and free college education, look to yourselves first. Guess what? Those state universities that you sent your kids to, they are subsidized by taxpayers. Why do you think they are so much cheaper than private colleges? That is socialism. Are your parents on Medicare? Socialism. Are your parents collect Social Security? Socialism. Do your police officers, firefighters, and prison guards have benefits and a pension? Socialism. Okay, so your answer to everything is just that, then. No matter what, if the government takes care of it, then we've trusted them to do that, why don't we trust them to do everything, right? I mean, let's just expand the government indefinitely. The government that otherwise you're arguing against. The government who, simultaneously, you don't like those police officers. You don't care for the prison guards. You see how this doesn't actually hold water in your argument because you can't stay consistent even through one article? Why is it when it benefits you, it's not socialism? I think that everyone, from birth to death, should have access to basic health care. That means I believe in a single-payer system. I think that the wealthiest country in the history of the world can afford this. You do realize one of the reasons we're the wealthiest country in the world is this hated imperialism you're talking about, right? You do understand that protecting our international assets is what you're mad about, right? The Affordable Care Act, the compromise between leaving 20 million people with no care and a single-player plan, is flawed, but it is morally bereft to overturn it. Those members of the House who voted to repeal it so many times should have been spending the time coming up with a better system. You have to do both. You cannot layer on another layer of archaic law to the already existent fucked up Affordable Care Act. You must repeal the Affordable Care Act and put something else in place that will actually function. Oh, but you don't understand anything about law. And do you understand corporate welfare? Here's an example. You shop at Walmart because it's cheap. Walmart is the biggest employer in the country. It does not pay its employees enough for them to live on, so some of them go on welfare, and many of them have to use Affordable Care Act to get health insurance. Who funds welfare? Taxpayers. Who funds the ACA? Taxpayers. Is this what you mean when you say corporate welfare? There's a whole lot worse versions of this, and you just went straight with Walmart doesn't pay its employees well. Oh, it's a segue. Okay. So Walmart makes a huge profit but doesn't pay its employees a living wage, so taxpayers to support them. Still want to buy your goods at Walmart? And yes, there should be a minimum wage that's livable. How could you be against that? The tone of this article is the only thing that doesn't change. Whatever the previous statement is the obvious morally correct position to hold. And they clarify that at the end of almost every sentence. It's phenomenal, really. It's great reading. So yes, I am an elite liberal. I buy organic foods when I can because I know that pesticides are harmful to the earth and I care about preserving the planet for the next generation. I think that clean water and clean air is worth preserving and that there ought to be strong laws to protect them. I thought you weren't big on the... Oh yeah, you're only big on the government when it helps you, just like you were complaining about with the socialism thing. I recycle. I reuse plastic bags because the thought of all that plastic trash I have personally created in my 55 years on Earth makes me sick. Yeah, well, I use paper bags, so I'm officially morally superior to you. Boom. What now, huh? I try to use polite and inclusive language because I care about others. I don't believe in war. I believe in war. War happens. You can't stop that. Not believing in war is the position of a Buddhist monk self-immolating. You realize that, right? I believe we should do everything we can to prevent violence. I believe that healthcare is a basic human right, and that women's rights are human rights. Woo, you go, girl! I even listened to NPR. I thought George Bush was a really horrible president, but you got me this time. Yes, dear. George Bush was not the greatest of presidents. Will you have a discussion with me about how shit Barack Obama has been? Because that's the one thing I can't get anyone to do, is to agree that Barack Obama wasn't a god emperor on the earth, and that's very difficult for me to handle. You elected Trump. Look up the DSM-4's definition of narcissistic personality disorder. Ma'am, we're at the DSM-5. You're using the old edition. And you will find that he meets all the criteria. Oh good, internet diagnosis, lovely. Look up the criteria for ADD as well, and you have your man. He does not read about the issues because he lacks the attention span. He speaks at a 3rd grade level. And you write at a 7th grade level. What is your point? Beyond that, if you look at the original article and go down in the comments section far enough, you can find people infighting about her slanderous use of ADD. I'm not joking. He brags about his crimes against women. Fuck yeah. He founded the fake Trump University and has innumerable conflicts of interest, unlike Hillary, who just took money from reputable organizations like Citigroup, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. That's not in the article, but I just thought it was pertinent to mention. He is so overwhelmed he has to have his kids help him. His education secretary nominee doesn't believe in public education. The EPA nominee has sued the EPA before. His VP believes that gays should have conversion therapy. The labor secretary nominee is anti-labor. The nominee for ambassador to Israel has views, which are guaranteed to inflame the situation in the Middle East. Oh, by that you mean they support Israel. So the left's new position is fuck the Jews. Don't worry, I haven't not noticed that shift. The position is officially fuck the Jews for the left. I understand. And who knows who he'll nominate for the Supreme Court. He is the president-elect of the fucking United States of America, but he is watching Saturday Night Live and tweeting about it. Remember when Barack Obama went on Between Two Ferns and you guys all found it joyous and personable? Now you're saying that there's some bearing that needs to be had. Okay, fair enough. He doesn't know anything. In what way could the pussy-grabbing president-elect with untreated ADD and a personality disorder who tells more lies than any politician in modern history, except Hillary Clinton, possibly make this country better? Yes, hatred and stupidity reign thanks to you. Good job. You showed me. Yes, girl, stand up and tell those trolls. This is the state of modern journalism. This woman prides herself on being a quote-unquote actual journalist. I couldn't shit you. She has it in her information that she's an actual journalist because she contributes to BuzzFeed. Somehow that makes you a journalist now. And it's no better from the Daily Caller. It's no better from Breitbart. It's two camps of high schoolers arguing on fucking LiveJournal. And I'm sick of it. And that's it for me, ladies and gents. That'll round out the year. I hope you've had a good one, and 2017 promises to be just as exciting, does it not? Thanks for being here. Stay safe. Good luck. And goodbye. And a Happy New Year.